every paper turned in a college classroom is going to require a certain specific format. In our class in freshman composition, that will be MLA format. However, some classes do accept APA format. If you, in my class, if you wish to use APA format, you may, but I only require MLA format. Now, this might seem completely confusing for some of you because you may never have actually been exposed to formatting rules. And some of you may have actually been exposed to them, but your teachers really didn't make you use them. Some students actually have had the luck of being exposed to MLA format. Unfortunately, a lot of times they have not had any clear instruction on using Word. So for all those reasons, I'm going to start, this video is going to help you walk through the MLA formatting procedure so that you may be able to write successful papers. Now we're going to start with a couple different rules. Now the first place we're going to start is in our layout, and that's going to take care of a couple of things. One thing I do recommend is before we even get started, make sure that there is a line, an empty line, before your first paragraph. We're going to need that space later on. Now from here, we want to go ahead and highlight this entire area, and we're going to go ahead and go to the Page Layout tab at the top. Now the first thing we want to check is our margins. We want to make sure our margins are normal. That means top and bottom 1 inch, left and right 1 inch. After that, we should be perfectly fine with most of the layout here. We shouldn't need to change our orientation, our size. There really is no need for columns, and these are going to be more specific items that would be used in more technical-based courses. Now, however, we do want to look at spacing, and a lot of people like to just generally use the spacing material here or the spacing material in the Home button, which can be found in various places, which unfortunately I'm not finding it at the moment. But in either case, neither of them are going to give you complete control of your spacing. So I would go from the paragraph function and find this little tab that's going to be off to the bottom right and click on it. It's going to create a pop-up window. And this pop-up window is going to be your best friend all semester. It'll allow you to adjust indentation, and that's actually pretty useful in some cases. And when we get to your works cited page, the special format here on indentation called hanging will actually be useful in making sure your works cited page is formatted correctly. But we don't need that now. We need to focus entirely on spacing. And in MLA, all papers are double spaced. From the very first letter to the very last period, every line is double spaced. So what we want to do is we want to go to spacing and we want to make sure it's only double spaced. Well, right now our before is 0 points. That means there's no additional space before a line. However, there is an 8 point after. That means there's 8 additional points after the space. We don't want that, so we want to bring that one down to 0. If your computer puts anything in these two areas, you want to go ahead and make sure they end up at 0. Then when we come to line spacing, we want to go ahead and use double. Double spacing is what we want, and that should be formatted correctly. Now, if in future classes you may want to ask if your professors would like you to add space, I don't want you to I don't want to worry about that, so we're just going to go ahead and hit OK. And if you notice, my paper is now completely double spaced. Now, in addition to all this, we want to make sure that each of our paragraphs are clearly separate from each other, and the best way to do that is through the paragraph indent. All paragraphs, the first line should be indented ½ inch. The easiest way to get them indented ½ inch is to use the tab button on the left side of your keyboard. So I'm just going to go ahead and tab each new paragraph, and you'll notice they go in nice and easy. And now all my paragraphs are indented ½ inch, and it's very simple, very easy. Most of you will probably be doing this naturally as you start a new paragraph, immediately hitting the tab button. I do recommend that so you don't have to worry about it at this stage. Well, now I've gotten the basic layout put together, so our next stop is to go ahead and make sure we have all of our items. So we're going to move back over to the Home tab, and that extra space we left at the top of the page. Well, at this point, what we need is a heading. Because we're using MLA format, we do not need to have a cover page. We want all of our basic information on the first page. So the very first line of the paper, that means the first line you can type on, is going to have your heading information. That heading information will include your name, my name, the class, and the date. So we're going to go ahead and type that in. And we're going to be writing John Doe's paper, and of course he's writing for me. So we'll put in my name. Now he's writing for WRC class, but since I'm using this for both my freshman Comp 1 and Comp 2, I'm not going to put anything else there. But you'll want to go put in 10, 13, or 23. You'll want to put a period, and then you'll put your 3-digit section number. On the very next line, you'll put the date. So we're going to go ahead and put the first day of class at UTSA, which is August 18th, and full date. Now, at the date, some professors will allow you to use various different formats. I really don't care here on how you format the date. You can do it as I have it done here. You can do this. That's perfectly fine too. And if you prefer using international date frame, that's fine also. And that one would go. And yes, when you can abbreviate a month, please go ahead and do that if you would like to. So I'm going to go back to the normal, the most common structure we see. And you'll notice that as I was doing that, everything was double spaced. We do want this heading double spaced, just like the rest of the paper, because the heading, if I move my cursor up, well, that's the first letter. J is the first letter. So everything after that line has to be double spaced. Of course, that means that is double spaced. Now, after our date, the next thing we're going to need is our title. So the title, we're not going to do really anything special to it except for centering it. So we can go ahead and hit the centering button, and we'll have our title put in there. So next you'll want to put in the title. In a drafting stage, it's okay if you don't really have much of a title besides paper 1 draft or whatever. But by the final draft, you do need to give us a title that actually gives us insight into what the paper's about. This is one area where I'm fine with anybody being as creative as they want to be, but still make sure that it's understandable and a clear idea of what the paper's about. If you're not creative, that's fine. Just make sure you have a descriptive title. Now, I actually already wrote a title for this, and it didn't center, so I will recenter it. And it's getting it right, writing a paper in MLA format, because that's what this paper's about. Now, of course, you'll see there's now a lot of extra space between my title and the first line of the first paragraph of the paper. We don't want that. So we want to actually make sure that our paragraph in our paper starts on the very next line after the title. So now I've got my name in, I've got my heading in, I've got my title in. The next part we're going to add is actually one of the most difficult parts of MLA format, and that's our header. This is a heading. It's something added only to the first page of the paper, while a header actually appears in the margin. It's a margin item. There is its opposite. There is such thing as a footer that would go here at the bottom, but in MLA format we generally do not use footers. If you find yourself using Chicago style and similar styles, you will have to learn how to use a footer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the insert function, and the first thing we want to do is get our page numbers. Basically, we want to make sure our audience knows which page is which, especially if we print out the paper and it's not stapled. If pages get in the wrong place, our audience might get confused. So we want to make sure that there's a page number on every page. So from this Insert tab, we're going to go ahead and go to Page Number. And from here, we'll just get the drop-down menu, and the page number in MLA format is always at the top of the page. In addition, in MLA format, the page number is in the right-hand corner. So it's usually going to be the third one down on the page number. Once I click that in, it's there. The next part of the heading is also going to be your last name. In MLA format, we want to make sure we know that each page belongs to a certain person, and the best way to do that is for that person to put their last name. So at this point, all I have to put in is the last name, type it in, put a space, and now I'm done. My header is complete. If I close out of here, it's done. In fact, it will do every single page for you. So if I decided to go on a second page, so you'll notice that immediately when I got on the second page, my header popped up with my last name and page number. Let the computer do this. It's nice when it can do that for you. But we don't need that second page. So now we've gotten all of the required items that is necessary for a paper. The last thing we need to do is worry about our text. And text has to be readable. This might seem right away that this is pretty readable, and Calibri at 0.11, that's point is the size, is relatively readable. But I usually do recommend that students use a very readable and common, what we call a serif font. A serif font means it's going to have these little extra tabs to each letter, which makes the letters actually pull apart. And by doing that, it's going to be easier to read. If they don't have those tabs, letters can easily start to blend together and overlap when people have to read multiple pages. We don't want that. So to fix our font, we want to go ahead and highlight the entirety of the paper. And we can just go from up here. If you want to go have more, you can go to the pop-up, just like we did with paragraph. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Times New Roman because it is one of the most common of the serif fonts. You'll notice that the font did change. Unfortunately, 11 is actually too small for Times New Roman, so we're going to move it up to 12 points. While Calibri at 11 is actually the same size as Times New Roman at 12. So in the end, we have basically the same length paper, but it's a lot easier to read. So now I've gotten our fonts done. We've got everything ready. In general, if you're ready to turn in your paper, well, you're done. Save it and turn it in. However, if you decide you want to use emphasis within your paper, that's perfectly fine. Let's say you want to put some emphasis on a specific word. It's really important, or it's really maybe confusing for people. So I'm going to go ahead and put that. I'm going to emphasize the word header. As I mentioned, that's one of the hardest things to do in MLA format. So I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to italicize it. That's going to create and grab attention to this item. Now, we don't want to use underline. Underline can be hard to see, and we want to avoid bold, which I'll talk about in a moment. And we don't need to put this in quotation marks. Quotation marks are used for quotes and only quotes. So I've got my word header highlighted. Now, if I had actually put in a name of something, let's say I wanted to go here, maybe I want to go into here and tell you, see the Little Seagull Handbook. On page 149, for example. Okay, I've got my sentence in, but Little Seagull Handbook is actually a name or a title of a book. Book titles, movie titles, television titles, databases, periodicals, and websites, as well as CD titles, are all going to be in italics also. In general, we don't really use a lot of bold when we're working with this kind of material. In fact, bold is generally kept off the table in most general MLA papers unless there's absolute need. Most of the time, you don't need bold unless you're writing to technical documents for specific audiences, which if you need to take business writing or technical writing, you should be able to explore that. We'll also kind of mention it during the presentation portion of our class. Well, my paper's done. I'm ready to go. All I need to do is save it and print it out. That's it. That's MLA format. Take your time, get used to it. Over time, it will actually become very easy. I don't have to look at rules anymore. It naturally comes to me. I know to exactly start with things a certain way. In time, it'll be the same for you. Now, as you move through school, if you find yourself needing to, let's say, learn a different style, go ahead and keep your Little Seagull handy, because the Little Seagull actually has the rules for APA style, which is used in a lot of communications, business, and science courses. And then we also have the Chicago style, which is often seen in classes like political science and history. But we have a couple in here, and we also have a couple others after that. But there's a few here in our book, including CSE, which is a very specific one for sciences. There are multiples. You may want to buy a specific style guide once you realize what style you're supposed to use in a classroom. But if you do not need that style guide, the Little Seagull should actually help you make it through the entirety of your college degree. Well, good luck on your paper. Make sure it's formatted correctly. Let's not lose any points on one of the simplest things we can do.